What is going on, wrestling fans? Welcome to the Tapped In Indie Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Heath Mullikin, joined by Nick McDaniel. Nick, once again, we are here to talk about the comings and goings in indie wrestling in Georgia and beyond. How are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing great today. We actually have a lot of stuff to cover today. It was an eventful weekend across the board for sure.
It feels like this show, a lot of big news items, and then not as many shows to cover on the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight. And hey, fans, if you want to watch the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, you can watch it at patreon.com/tapped-out-pod. Sign up for a free account. Doesn't cost you a thing. That is a weekly show where we talk about the shows that just happened and the shows coming up this week. You'll find out who won the week on there. And as always, you're watching this on YouTube. Make sure if you're not subscribed, do that. Hit the like button and also hit the bell to get all the notifications. And as always, we thank fans for their support. If you were a Patreon member, you get all the episodes early. You got that great interview with Bryce Cannon early. You got some behind the scenes stuff that happened over the weekend that we'll get into a little bit more. And Nick, as we're recording today, I noticed, you're normally wearing your Beats headphones, and today I noticed you got something else on today.
Yeah, man, we picked up a new sponsor in the show, the Like Me Cozy. They're awesome, dude. I mean, I've been checking them out, trying them out over the weekend, and I just thought to myself, why don't you try these on the podcast? It'll beat having the big thing on your hat and stuff. I mean, look, I can actually just take my hat off and adjust it and not have to worry about fidgeting with the headphones. So yeah, man, I was like, I'm pretty happy with them.
Hey, listen, I know we don't live in the same state, but I mean, I'm gonna need you to hook a brother up.
Hey, look, like I said, we picked them up. They're a great sponsor. Lots of stuff in the show notes. You're going to see, look, we've got the links in there to buy them and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Before we kind of start telling them where to go buy it, we should probably tell them a little bit about it, don't you think?
That sounds like a good idea.
Wrestling fans, if you're traveling, you're training in the gym, or you're just kicking back and you're listening to the Tapped In Indie podcast, you're going to need earbuds that work for you. And that's why we rock the Like Me Cozy Fit G1 earbuds like you see Nick wearing on this episode. These things are great. They get you more focused. The open ear design cuts down low frequency noise, keeps all the distractions away, so that way you can lock in on what you're trying to do. Thing comes with 4 mics, AI noise filtering, so the background noise just kind of disappears for you. So all of your calls are going to sound sharp and professional. These things are super lightweight. They're comfortable, man. You can see Nick wearing them all throughout this episode. They are only 0.2 ounces, so that way they're really designed to fit any ear shape. They don't really go in the ear. They're just out of the ear, so they fit really good, and that's something Nick's a big fan of. Man, they also give you 10 hours of charge, 30 hours total, and you get a quick 10-minute charge, man. Boom. You got a couple more hours that you can stay locked in to whether you're working on a podcast like me or you're just jamming to the music. Also, you can download the Like Me Connect app from the App Store or Google Play. It lets you customize touch controls, adjust your EQ sound, all that kind of stuff, so you can actually set these to your exact preferences. And because you're a member of the Tapped In family, you're going to get 10% off if you put your order on the official website. Promo code TappedOutPod. That link is in the show notes, and we will, of course, advertise it on social media. Again, 10% off on the official website with the promo code TappedOutPod, or run on over to Amazon. They're doing a limited time $20 discount coupon, and again, that link is in the notes as well. So remember, if you want sharp, top-tier sound, all-day comfort on your ears, customizable controls, man, don't wait. Go grab your Like Me Cozy Fit G1 earbuds today. Now back to the show. Well, man, like I said, that kind of breaks down like the details of it, but they're, like I said, they're really, did you know these things weigh like 0.2 ounces?
They look really light. How do they fit on your ear? Do they kind of go in, or do they lay on the outside? Like, how secure
Yeah,
are
no,
they?
they just lay on the outside. They've got like a little wraparound that goes around. It's a bendable, flexible, but it kind of like contours and grabs hold of the ear good enough. But you don't I don't feel it. I'm weird about my ears.
Yeah.
I don't like the AirPods that stick in your ear.
Yeah.
What's cool about them too is because they're open ear, you can still hear. It's got like noise cancellation, but you can still hear things around you. So like I also get nervous about they're jammed in my ear and I can't hear anything going on around me at all. I
Right.
like to hear a little bit, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, the app's cool. I've tested it out. You can go onto the app and download. It's a free app. You can set your equalizer settings. You can do all kinds of stuff, as far as the volume and all that kind of stuff to make them kind of how you want them. And so, yeah, I love them, man. The Cozy Fit G1s from Like Me, man. And like I said, both links are in the show notes. Click on those, and if you go to their website, promo code Tapped Out Pod, you'll get 10% off your order. And I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to say it right now. Something a little special on the website. I would do the website over the Amazon link right now if you're looking for the best deal. But if you're an Amazon guy, hey, I get it. Amazon links there as well. Click on that, and you'll get a $20 coupon off for that one right now.
For the price of one pair of the expensive headphones, you could get everybody in your family a pair of these Like Me earbuds.
Yeah, that's the other thing is it's with that $20 coupon right now or the 10% off on the website. I think you'll be pretty happy with the price too.
Yeah, so make sure you check out the Like Me earbuds, and I'll be looking for mine in the mail very soon. Another thing we were very happy about as we head into our stories of the week, something we've been waiting almost a year for, and that was the return of Bryce Cannon to Lariato Pro Wrestling Guild on Saturday night. He came back. He was the champion. Lariato did not strip him of that title in spite of the injury. His match, let me rephrase that. His main event match with Friday ended in a draw because of interference from John Schuyler. John Schuyler, longtime Lariato worker, former Lariato Pro heavyweight champion. So John Schuyler interrupts. They make a match for the next show, triple threat. Bryce Cannon, who you've heard of. Let's see if you've heard of these other two guys, Nick. Machine Gun Carl Anderson and Matt Hardy. And if that's not enough to say what a great return, JBL gave him a clothesline from hell. Bryce Cannon, good to have you back. Welcome back, buddy.
Yeah, listen, I mean, we're happy he's back. He has his first match. It was everything. Obviously, physical, like physicality wise, that's a win. You start there.
Yes.
The continuation of the feud, a year ago with John Schuyler. Hey, kudos to them for, I was. First of all, it is very beneficial that Lariato does not run like monthly or by they spread their shows out. So I think it was a little. Would you make the case it was easier for them not to pull the trigger and like strip the title because it was like, hey, it is what it is. But then, like you said, to get hey, it's going to be Matt Hardy and Carl Anderson versus Bryce Cannon. What a massive opportunity. I mean, massive opportunity for that young man. And that's in June. But then to eat the clothesline from hell from JBL. Look, we don't often, in certain scenarios, like to pull back the curtain. But John Bradshaw Layfield took to social media, by the way, and basically gave an approval to Bryce Cannon about he's a great champion. I mean, that's a pretty... You don't get that very often. And by the way, we also know not too long ago, a year plus ago, he also got an approval of a Matt Cardona.
Yes.
After having a match with him. There's a reason we're massive fans of Bryce Cannon. And, and when somebody like a JBL gives you listen, he had kept his New Year's resolution. That was it. He's telling everybody he's feeding clotheslines all year long. So he had to keep his word. But he gave that nod to Bryce Cannon. Dude, that's a pretty big moment for that young man, like I said.
The clothesline from hell, in a way, has kind of become a stamp of approval from JBL. And I'm sure it didn't feel like a stamp of approval for Bryce Cannon. Bryce Cannon looked great. Saw some video. Obviously, saw the clip of JBL, and Bryce used his time away very wisely. Kept his mind sharp. Kept his body keen. And I told you before we hit record. Somebody probably needs to take both of our shows this week, feed them in the AI, and get out every time we say the name Bryce Cannon, because it's going to be a lot this week. He's going to be one of the leading men on this week's shows. Now, over the weekend, now, fans, if you've listened to the Patreon, you already know, and this is why you need to become a patron. Hint, hint. You heard Friday, midday, that Tannery Row Ale House closed. Like, gone forever. Just last week, we were promoting the Disruptor show, and just like that, that venue is gone. Disruptor has had to cancel their show. Turnbuckle has also announced their show on next Friday has also been canceled or rescheduled, however you want to call it. And Nick, it's the end of one of my favorite venues ever in indie wrestling, and I still don't know how. I mean, I'm heartbroken, but I'm still processing the emotions of that.
Yeah, listen, Tannery Row was one of our favorite venues. Look, I know there's a lot of people out there holding on to that. There is like a glimmer, like a very far, possibility that it, doesn't. Two things. One, if you really want the behind the scenes stuff on what really went down and how it all, like you said, it was behind the paywall on our Patreon. Check that out. It goes into the details of why. We're not going to go into that here. But then, look, with the new ownership, believe it or not, I do have a connection with the new ownership or, the new leaseholder, call it whatever you want to call it. So maybe over the next week I can get some more details and I'll have a definitive, like, hey, wrestling ain't ever coming back. Because that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's like, hey, is there a chance or is it there's no chance? I mean, it's really, let's cut and dry. Because like you said, hands down, it was one of our favorite venues, if not the favorite venue to go to see a show. It had so much things going for it, other than even just the food. It was the environment and stuff. And I've heard a couple other things. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I got to tell you a couple things off air that I did hear after. And I just totally blanked before we hit record. So look, I think Tannery Row's probably done with wrestling? Probably. I would lean that way if you asked me today. Which really stinks because, like I said, we talked about it a little bit last week. It was two of our absolute, those two promotions do something just different than everybody else, and they stand out, and I think they give a lot of guys opportunities, and so it stinks that and again, look, we'll probably address, I got a feeling the turnbuckle part of the conversation will come up again on one of the two shows, but, I think it just stinks that it's probably gone in what I think.
It was good food. We had the same server every time we were there, and she was amazing. She was great, and it's just a sad thing, and a great set. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to cry on live television. Saturday night, you and Myron went to Southern Fried. Experienced that. We got a lot to talk about that. And then we saw where SCA, a week after they drew about 127 people around that, right around that they were over 100 again. So back-to-back weeks over 100, which is a big deal in Royston. But the key there is you got two promotions reminding us that it's important to have good stuff in the ring, but it's more important to tell a really great story.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's, we talked about that leading in, because remember when they had that really good house for spectacle at the SCA, we talked about like, okay, but now how do is the story to keep, because they drew a good one with the story. Is it good enough now to maintain it? Which clearly, you would expect after a big show, it doesn't matter like what company you are. You always see like, Rumble Jack, the show after is a dip typically because everybody comes to see Rumble Jack. When Southern Fried does a shindig, the next show's usually a little bit down because it's a big show. So the trends are normal. It's a normal thing.
Yeah.
And so for them not to have the massive, it showed the people genuinely like wanted to see what's next, like what's going to happen. Southern Fried kind of emphasized your point that you talked about, the emotion so the Eliminator Gauntlet match, and again we'll talk about this obviously on the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, but that match it was over an hour, pretty. So I mean you could think like, oh, the fans were hot for an hour because they cared about every single piece of how that match broke down and absolutely went bananas at the finish. A lot of those. So I was sitting there and I thought to that, like, wrestling matches are great. So like it's they are. But in general, do people care? Like, I mean, after the fact, other than the "this is awesome" chants over, when you leave the building a week or two later, are those people going to buy a ticket to come back because you put on a great quote unquote match? No, they bought the ticket because they wanted to see what was going to happen with the Sexton Alliance and the Crusade. Like, that's what they were paying to see, the story part. And there are little details, man. Like I'm going to not pull, the curtain back as much as I probably feel like I could or should.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. This is where the story, when I talk about story, matters. Let's look at the Crusade for a minute. I want you to kind of, interject here at times too. With no disrespect to anybody in that group. I made the comment of like, they kind of took a lot of misfit toys and assembled this group, the Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
From an outside looking in, you wouldn't think those, members like, wait, what? Like, what? But they have put them together and then massive. This is the part where I'm going to try to pull, like, not go too deep into behind the weeds, or behind the curtain / in the weeds. People were giving enough that those people, in the Crusade, the members, the Pat Roaches, the Grillos, the Dominic Stuckeys, the Tayouts. Look, Hunter James was already built as a guy. Those other four guys, they were there, but they were made as credible opponents because they literally have shown us they are a threat to the Sexton Alliance.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like and that's part of like guys being willing to be a part of the story. You see where I'm trying to dance around here, and going, we have to make credible threats to us in order to make people care and worry. There are other promotions, and I say this on a regular. No one ever feels that their heroes are threatened. Like, hey, they might lose a match, but the next one they're going to get their W back, or they're going to be, and if that's the case, people are like, well, it doesn't really matter if they lose because they're going to win again at the next show.
Right.
They literally made a band of misfit toys into a viable threat to the Sexton Alliance, who are basically, call it what it was, like, hey, these are our most popular babyface, and by the way, even turned a set of heels back into that group.
Yes.
Successfully. Storylines matter, and when done well, you see the hot reactions that, the crowds give them.
I don't think there's any doubt that Todd Sexton is early in line for that Booker of the Year award. Not that he gets up every morning thinking about that. And I think one of the reasons is you just listed several of them. The number of different things he's accomplishing with this angle. He has introduced guys, some of them fairly new to Southern Fried, or who have not been there consistently. And he's elevated these new guys to another level. And then, like you said, the approved, he's turned them babyface with the Sexton Alliance. And again, it's all these things he's doing as part of one angle. And it's just absolutely amazing. The thing with SCA, I think over 100 people showed up last Friday, and we'll talk about it on the Spotlight show to see, okay, this, the heels have taken over this promotion. What is it going to look like? How's it going to work? Who's going to wrestle who? And they've created, when the fans don't know what's going to happen next, that's when they get invested. When it's not predictable, when it's not just the same old, same old, same old, when you can give them the favorites that they've liked for a long time versus some people that maybe they're not as familiar with. It's just really good storytelling by both of these promotions.
Eric Bischoff, who I'm obviously a big fan for, he always talks about the questions you want when the fans leave is now what? Like, what's next? What's going to happen next? They don't know. It's questions. You always want them asking questions. If they can sit there and say this, like, that's not, people don't get invested in that. People want to know, well, hey man, what do you think they're going to do next, or what's going to happen next, or who's coming in, those are the questions are how you sell tickets. There's a reason why that's on the format. Like, what questions are people wondering? Like, what do they want answered at the next show to get you to come back? That's why. They're doing a great job of, like, okay, and we're going to dive really deep in. Look, there's the Southern Fried finish is a topic for the Spotlight that I think a lot of people will want to hear about.
Yes. Now here's where some of the similarities in there. Southern Fried not running for till the beginning of April, so they got a month off. SCA, aka APW, Apocalypse Pro Wrestling, they're gonna be back Friday night. It's no weeks off for these guys, so I'm curious to see how these two promotions handle the schedule. Speaking of handling the schedule, it was announced, I guess just yesterday, maybe, that IWTV has launched a new channel on their streaming site called IWTV 123. It premiered Saturday, March 1st. And what this is, it's a 24/7 streaming channel where wrestling is just constantly on. It's not on demand, and it's got shows and matches from so many of the IWTV promotions: Dreamwave, Beyond Wrestling, CZW, ICW No Holds Barred. And so if you're ever on there and you're like, man, I'm not really sure what to watch, you can go to this channel and you never know who you're going to see on there.
Last night, I was pulling it up. I was like, because listen, I'm the worst, and I tell people this all the time. One of the worst things that happened with all these streaming apps is I'll spend 30 minutes sometimes jumping through apps, looking through content, trying to find something to watch. And there's so much to choose from that you will literally, like in the notes say, it's like paralysis. Like, you're just like,
yes,
because you even when you find something that you're like, oh, that's cool, you're almost like, yeah, but there's probably something better on something else, so you just keep going. And I'll go for 30 minutes looking for something, and then finally go, okay, I'll pick the thing I saw 20 minutes ago and go back to it finally. So last night I pulled up IWTV. I was, checking it out or whatever. And of all the things, I clicked it, it's just to go into IWTV app. It says live in the middle. You hit it. There's the channel. It's on. And guess what's on?
What's
Action
that?
Dean. The action show that ran the WrestleMania weekend that everybody talked about, that we've heard nothing but glowing reviews, probably was the best indie show, with the best indie match at WrestleMania weekend. And it was just randomly on. And I was like, oh, so, of course I took a screenshot that and sent that to a friend of the show and was like, hey, look what I'm watching. And that's just randomly what was on. So that, it is a cool thing. Look, I do, one of the things people get, tease me a lot about Pluto. I love the Pluto TV apps. It's kind of the same thing. There's channels, but it's just a 24/7 feed. There's something, and so it's like, oh, I want to watch an action movie. They have an action movie channel. You just go to it, and it's either Rocky or Over the Top or some Schwarzenegger, whatever, just some random action movie. And I just kind of go, boop, put it on it, and go, there we go.
You never know who you're going to see on there. You could see people before they were stars: Cody Rhodes, Kevin Steen, aka Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, Rhea Ripley. You can see a lot of these stars before they made it big, and then while you're watching IWTV, you're going to see people who are the stars of tomorrow. So that's one of the reasons we like IWTV. A lot of the Georgia promotions are on there, and this just adds even more value to the price of the subscription. And I think more and more we're going to see more promotions live streaming their shows. The technology's getting better, the internet's getting better, and why wouldn't you partner with IWTV to make that happen? Speaking of IWTV and action wrestling, we want to give a shout out. Germany this week, the WXW 16 Carat Gold Tournament is taking place, and Adam Priest and one called Manders are both going to be taking part in that tournament in Germany.
Yeah, look, we had heard about, obviously, when they made the announcement that they were going to be heading there, and it was just kind of like, it's a huge thing and an opportunity, and it's one of the strengths. Like, we talk about this all the time. It's one of the strengths of working with the action and the IWTV world, because that's kind of why we obviously followed right into this. IWTV is available everywhere. So their fan base is familiar, overseas. So to have an opportunity then to travel overseas like these two guys, the main reason I'm a huge proponent of this is this tournament has a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a history there. The names that have won. Here's the crazy thing: the names that have been in it and not won is just as crazy. I mean, Bryan Danielson's been in it. We were just a bunch of different stuff, and I'm just super stoked for these guys to actually have an opportunity to go over there. And I'm pulling it up now. I really wanted to be specific because I wanted to show the names. We'll go back. Like if you're an indie talent and you can win this, I mean, you're talking names like Jonathan Gresham. You're talking Ilya Dragunov has been it. What's that guy done lately, right? Yeah. Zack Sabre, Tommy End, Chris Hero, El Generico. Who's that guy, right? Like, I mean, what has he ever done? Sammy Callahan. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of guys that have been in here. But like I said, the crazy part was even when we were looking at names that didn't win, Claudio Castagnoli, Rocky Romero, Bryan Danielson, Tyler Black. Again, a list of who's who have been in this tournament. So for these two guys to get an opportunity to go over there opens up, I think, potentially massive doors internationally for them. Because, by the way, Adam Priest has been everywhere. That guy's everywhere now.
Yeah, and is on AEW quite a bit sometimes. So anyway, I wonder if there's a way to watch. I mean, I wonder if there's a streaming option for that 16 Carat Gold Tournament. A live stream.
You know what? I need to do more research. I guess I should have looked, but I wonder if it's on IWTV.
Might be. That's a good.
It's a good project because
Good question. Well, fans, moving right along, let's get into this month's Power 5. If you've been following the show, we're doing the Power 5 once a month. We do the hot hand. We do underrated, underappreciated. We talk about the champions list. And a little bit of movement here in the Power 5. So let's start off a name. Again, this name is in here pretty consistently, and that is Matt Griffin. Action Wrestling returned last Friday night. Matt Griffin is everywhere, and even when he's not at places like Southern Fried, he is on the hearts and minds of everybody there.
Yeah, I mean, look, he literally, David Manders threw down the gauntlet to him about being at the next show coming out to show up to, answer for his actions at the previous show. But he's, and I think a lot of credit to the two topics we discussed prior to this. the Adam Priest, the one called Man, because of the Action connection. Action's very important role in the IWTV world. Look, SCI's coming up in July. He plays a helping role in that thing as well. Puts on some of the best Mania shows over. All these things factor into. And look, he likes to call himself the kingpin of Georgia wrestling. And look, he's involved at Southern Honor. He was involved in the Blood and Honey series. Like you said, literally anywhere and everywhere, it seems like he's popping his head up.
Yeah, and that is the essence of the Power Five. The Power Five is about influence. It's about effect. It's about making an impact. Somebody else making an impact. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. We talk about them a lot, but somebody we don't talk about. A huge part of that Turnbuckle team is Scott Barnett. And this situation with Tannery Row, which was a core venue for Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. But Scott Barnett, over the last years, Turnbuckle has grown and grown and grown. He has shown a great ability to navigate venue issues and find great new places for Turnbuckle to run.
Yeah, look, it's one of the reasons. Like, we had the attitude about the Tannery situation. It was like, look, it stinks. It obviously really stunk for the Disruptor show. What went down because they get no heads up. But with with Turnbuckle running in there, like, we were like, okay, it stinks that they've lost this venue. But with their scenario, we don't have any doubt that they're going to, that cog in that machine of Turnbuckle, the Scott Barnett, is going to find another venue. It'll be that, like, we were like, hey, look, it cost them this date. But I have, like, there's a part of me that's like, hey, I wouldn't be stunned. I'm not saying it's going to happen, folks, so don't quote me in this sense of the word. I wouldn't be stunned if there was another place running a show on February 14th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, March the 14th. I'll get my months here right. But, like, that show, it wouldn't shock me if they're like, hey, we found a venue, we're running that show, but it's going to be here instead. Now, do I think that's likely? I think they'll probably miss that show and it'll be back. But come the next month, I'm like, dude, I have no concern that they'll be replaced that second Friday. They'll be running somewhere, and so it's just because of the ability to add venues, date. Like, they just added a Locust Grove show. Like, there's other shows that we know are coming. They have announced their big, Jefferson. There's another show. They're, it's like, dude, I don't have any concern that they're going to plug that date.
Right.
We just were like, yeah, it's stuck. And that's a testament, to Turnbuckle, but specifically to Scott Barnett. Like, it's the work he puts in there, that it was just kind of like, that's why when it comes to getting a venue, he might be the guy. He might be one of the guys in Georgia that I would put on that list of, like, hey, we got to find a venue. That's the guy that I would almost say, like, can you find us one?
And this is just in the last year, this is their second or third venue that's kind of closed down on them. They used to run the Monday Nightmare show down there in Athens, and that brewery had some issues and may be reopening at some point. But Scott has shown.
He rebounded. Think about it. Really, Watkinsville, right up the street.
Yep.
Boom, and they're thriving in that place to the point. Not only are they running the Monday Nightmare shows, they're now running Turnbuckle shows, and they're on the first Fridays of the month.
Just some really good stuff, and Scott does really good job. Next, we have another name that you've heard us been saying a lot, and that is Carly Bravo. Carly Bravo, he did something when he made that, I don't even remember when it was, the social media post where he put everybody on notice. It raised the temperature of Georgia wrestling. And there has been a little spice back in Georgia wrestling ever since then. The stuff that's going on with J. Alpha Miller that really kicked off at the awards banquet. And Carly Bravo shows no signs of slowing down. He continues to be a championship collector. He's now the undisputed unified Georgia Wrestling Crown champion. But again, Carly Bravo, just one of our favorites.
So kudos for getting that right on the first time. That mouthful of a time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Um, the the collecting of titles, the stepping up to letting anybody step up to him. Um, Look, he's going to have AJ Francis on his plate here coming up in the next couple
Mm-hmm.
months. Jay Alpha Miller, I don't know if you caught. We did I wanted to get back into doing these indie showcase matches on YouTube. So yesterday I launched I did share the Jay Alpha Miller Rob Killjoy match on our YouTube channel. And the reason it was important is obviously the match was spectacular, but post match, that's where he calls out Carly Bravo specifically, in his promo post match. And that's so it's kind of like a young man stepping up to the plate of Carly Bravo, and he's going to get measured. Let's put it that way. We're going to find out where he stands when he faces Carly Bravo at the next Coastal Empire show. But that goes back to what we're talking about. Carly Bravo has no boundaries. Like, he will wrestle
Right.
anywhere, anytime, anybody, and he's showing that by bouncing from. He showed up at Southern Fried. He's at AWE. He's at Southern Honor. He's a tag champion there. Now he's at Coastal. He's been. Like boom, 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 boom. Name a promotion. I dare say to people, if you want to take your promotion to the next level, reach out. No pun intended there. Call Carly Bravo.
Yeah.
Like, he will dance with the best, at your promotion, and or he will test your champions, or he will measure they will go in there and you'll find out how good your stars are, because he can put him up against your best. But dare I say, you better put him up against your best, because that's what it's going to take to have, to get Carly Bravo there.
I would say two things. Number one, don't waste Carly Bravo's time, and time is short with Carly Bravo. The time for you to book him is now.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're going to be able to book him 12 months from now.
No, I would probably agree with that. I've been saying that, and I think that day's coming closer and closer. So, like you said, I agree. If you're like, oh, well, maybe we'll book him in 6 months. If you can get him, because you ain't gonna be able to get him long.
That is very correct. A new addition to the Power Five is the Crusade. We already know what they're doing in Southern Fried, tag team champions. Hunter James, the Classics champion. Now Hunter James is the Coastal Empire champion. Grillo and Pat Roach won the Georgia Championship Wrestling tag titles. And the whispers are the Crusade is truly going to be a crusade, and they're not done collecting championships all around Georgia. And the question, Nick, is anybody going to stop this group?
It's going to be tough. The numbers game always stands. I mean, you got to remember, like, how when you start talking about who, your Dominic Stuckeys, yeah, obviously, okay, back up. Let's start with the leader, Hunter James, Dominic Stuckey, Pat Roach, Grillo, Teo, Joey Hyder, like, all, they've got this group, and it's a really solid group across the board. A lot of athletes in there. A lot of, by the way, I'm going to tease for a couple next week when we get into the underrated, underappreciated. There's a name that I'm going to pull out of this group that might surprise you, that I am like, after seeing him in person again, I'm like, yeah, I'm guilty of underrating and underappreciating this person, and they're going on the list next week. So check us out next week for that. But yeah, if they are deciding they're going to march across Georgia, and they're going to chase championships, the numbers game is massively in their favor. So be careful, because they have an opportunity, I think, to be everywhere with the numbers game.
Now, a lot of people may be saying, guys, how can you put them in the Power Five? They just lost the biggest match that they've had. They've had like one big group match, and now they've lost it. That's why you want to watch the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, because Nick and I do not think that loss hurt them at all. And we think, we think you should watch the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight over on Patreon to hear our thoughts on that and see exclusive video of the finish of that match. Finally, our last member of the Power Five this week, somebody who had just ascended into the Power Five last year, and he is back. He is back with a vengeance, and that is Bryce Cannon. Back in the Power Five. We talked about it earlier. Um, Great crowd for Lariato, close to 600 paid. The interaction with WWE Hall of Famer, the interaction and match coming up with television stars, and Bryce Cannon has shown he can hang with the best of them.
We may catch a little flack for that one, right? Dude, he's been back a week. But what a week.
Yes.
The take that'll clip out that a lot of people are probably going to be aggravated by. Has he done more in a week than some guys have done the first 2 months?
Yes.
Yes. Look, I'm asking. Like I said, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Send that mail, right? Send those, comment in the video, blah, blah, blah. On Patreon, you can comment on the video. I just think, honestly, and I know I'm going to repeat some of what you said here, but I mean, I'm making my case. He's fired from Coastal, one of the biggest stories of last week.
Mm-hmm.
He's in this, the huge house for his return. And listen, by the way, if you want to hear a hot take, I think Bryce Cannon's, look, I'm being honest. I'm going to be fair. JBL probably was the number one draw on that show.
Yes.
I would say Bryce Cannon's return was a number two. Like, that's what people were buying tickets to see. They wanted to see. We had talked about it for a year. Bryce Cannon's return. Mm-hmm. It has now happened. So I'm crediting him with, a big chunk of that house. Great match. Hey, mission accomplished. He had his return match. That's kind of, everything went well in the sense of physical health. You took a clothesline from hell, and then you're announced you're going to have those two opponents at the next show. By June, he would have wrestled think about this, a TNA guy. He's just won half of the tag champions and one of the greatest tag teams of all time, the Hardys, right? There's that. Then his other opponent's going to be Carl Anderson, the Good Brothers, part of the Bullet Club, sickiny group name in it, whatever. One of the biggest, stars in New Japan for a long time,
Yes.
And he's going to have both of them in one night. This is one of those moments where you look at a guy like Bryce Cannon and go, two things can be true. This is a massive opportunity, mm-hmm. and it's a massive amount of pressure at the same time. Like, he's got that opportunity, but he's going to get in there with two of the, two well-established national TV stars. We'll find out. Look, I think he already has, but this is a different case. The reason this is such a big week for him, and I say this, in June, after that match, he'll be able to say, I can stand, I can go toe-to-toe and hold my own with two guys who are, I know Carl's been, let go, but TV guys.
Yeah.
And I think that will speak volumes about his future. Where does Bryce Cannon belong on TV? That answer will be answered, in my opinion. And look, and I get it, tapped out budget. If you don't think so, I think it's a great measuring stick to find out that night.
Yeah, and if you're an independent wrestler, you want to be thrown in the deep end. You want to get those kind of opportunities. And when someone is able to get those kind of opportunities, that's what gets them into the Power Five. And so, again, kudos to Bryce Cannon. Good to have you back, buddy. And, yeah, we're just excited to see it. We got a lot more. We'll have a full breakdown of that Lariato Code show. Again, coming up on the Indy Spotlight, which you can only watch on Patreon, patreon.com/tappedoutpod. You can join for free, set up a free account. You can join for free. You get a lot of stuff. The best thing you need that you can get at that $1 level, all of the show notes. You will see all the stuff we don't get to, and you get it. And really the show notes give you a behind the scenes look at where the promotions are, what they're thinking, where they're going. And as always, you can watch this on YouTube. You know what you can do? You can share this stuff. Tell your friends, tell a neighbor, tell a wrestler, tell a gram. And it's just a good thing. Nick, I want to do a spoiler for the Tapped Out show. I know you guys are struggling to find, a good topic
Yeah.
for this week. Um, John Cena heel turned. Holy cow! I'm sure that's the top story for you guys.
It was such a massive thing. I joked about it. I had a set of show notes already started. We're going to the
Yeah.
format where we kind of have a big list or what ifs, topic of the show. And after literally, I think it was Saturday night or Sunday morning, I texted you guys and completely blew up the notes that I had for the Tapped Out show this week. And I think they just rewrote the show notes.
Yeah.
Completely changed the entire. I mean, you think that's a big deal for us. Like, it completely blew up and changed what I wanted to do for the show. But yeah, we're gonna dive into a lot of, the John Cena heel turn, the Rock's involvement, some things that if you're not listen, I have quietly become a post PLE press conference guy because there's a lot of cool stories coming out of those press conferences. We're going to dive into some of that, and then it made us rewrite it. So here's what we want. It's going to be the top 10 heel turns of all time. That's the topic this week because I was like, where does that one rank amongst the all the others over history? And so that if you're on Patreon, you can't because you're getting this show early. You'll have time. tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Send your list. We'll try to get them worked in there and stuff like that as well. But yeah, John Cena turning heel completely rocked the entire episode that I had originally planned for this week.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed during Elimination Chamber, there were several moments in that show. I think of the moment when Cena and Punk faced off in the Elimination Chamber match. That some of the things that happened Saturday night took over a decade to get to. And that's what made them so unique. And those come around like one time. And that is what's so unique about wrestling is when those opportunities arise, can you make the most of them? And I think WWE hit a grand slam. I know I have friends who have children who were visibly and emotionally shaken. And I'm like, these kids are hooked.
Yeah, there was a tease. I don't know how accurate this is. There was a post put up, he did some Make-A-Wishes before that show.
Yeah.
And the comment was John Cena made his final Make-A-Wishes, before the show. Like, listen, I understand, folks. People are going to be mad at what I want to say.
Yeah.
But how invested in the story would they be, which I think they wholeheartedly are, if John Cena's like, no Make-A-Wishes until this is done?
Yeah. Wow.
Now, or do you think he just breaks the character for that because it means so much to him? It's a good question, right? What do you do? Is it best for wrestling that he doesn't do them? Sure. But I don't know that he's got that in him. That might be the only problem. I don't know,
Did you see the kayfabe news headline that says, heel Cena takes back thousands of wishes?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I know some people are like, oh, I called it. Look, I made a joke about it a few weeks ago about it happening. I mean, you didn't know. I mean, you could sit there. That's what we do. We're speculating and pitching it out there. But no, I don't think anybody knew because even in the press conference, by the way, Rock was like, no, it was pretty much, it was Brian Gewirtz, it was Rock, it was Triple H, and it was Cena like that. There were people within the company that didn't know. Like Triple H took over production.
Yeah.
Because he knew and he'd be able to tell the cameras where to go because the other people didn't know. Think about that. Like that's how much they're, keeping stuff close to the vest here in WWE. So kudos to them, and I'm sure we'll dive a lot into that as well, on the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast as well. So
Absolutely. Tappedoutpod.com is where you can always find the show. And fans, it's one thing to listen to news about indie wrestling, but the best thing you can do is buy a ticket. And on the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, we're going to tell you where you can go to buy a ticket. And if you buy a ticket and you go to a wrestling show, maybe, just maybe, if you're lucky, we'll see you at the matches.